Good day, everyone. We are the Group 5, and today I am here to discuss my topic blood supply. So, blood supply refers to the flow of blood that is delivered to a certain part of the body through blood vessels. So, blood is very important because it carries essential substances that help cells survive and function properly. So blood carries first um, oxygen for cells to live, second nutrients like glucose for energy, third is hormones and other important substances. So first it delivers oxygen which cells need in order to produce energy and stay alive. So the second is blood transport nutrients such as glucose, vitamins, and minerals that provide energy and support the normal activities of cells. In addition, blood also carries hormones and other chemical substances that help regulate different processes in the body. Because of these functions, proper blood supply is necessary for every organ, especially the brain. Because if the brain does not receive enough blood, it will not get enough oxygen and nutrients, and this can cause dizziness, loss of consciousness, or even permanent brain damage. So, the second one, the brain receives blood mainly from two pairs of arteries. So, the two pairs of arteries is internal carotid arteries and vertebral arteries. So, internal carotid arteries bring blood to most of the front and top parts of the brain, or the cerebellum. The internal carotid arteries travel upward along the front part of the neck and enter the skull to supply blood to the most of the cerebellum. So the cerebellum is the largest part of the brain and is responsible for higher mental functions such as thinking, memory, learning, speaking, and voluntary movements. Because the cerebellum performs many important tasks, it requires a large and steady supply of blood. On the other hand, the vertebral arteries travel upward through the back of the neck and pass through openings in the vertebrae before entering the skull. So these arteries are mainly supply blood to the back portion of the brain, including the cerebellum and the brainstem. The cerebellum is responsible for balance and coordination, while the brainstem controls vital life function such as breathing, heart rate, and blood pressure.
I am Chelsea Oy and I'm going to continue the report of Idle Mitch. So, we all know what is blood supplies and the two parts or the two pairs of arteries. So, let's first dig in. What are the two arteries? So, first is the internal carotid arteries, which is carries blood from the front and top of the brain, while the vertebral arteries is carry blood from the back part of the brain, including the cerebellum and the brainstem. So the two vertebral arteries join together, so it would form one big artery called the basilar artery. So if this artery connect, it would in a circular structure, so it would create from a base part of the brain called a circle of Willis. So next is the venous circulation. So a venous circulation is a movement of blood back to the heart through the veins after the blood or brain has already used the oxygen. So the venous circulation is mauni siya ang mag-carry sa blood, which is the used blood back to the heart. So this returns flows of used blood back to heart through veins. So pamaagi sa veins, gibalik ang mga adto sa heart ang mga ginamit ng mga blood pamaagi sa venous circulation. So, for you to be able to understand what is venous circulation, think about this way. The arteries where it bring fresh blood to the brain away from the heart. Well, the venous circulation is carries used blood away from the brain back to the heart. So, ang arteries kay mao ni siya ang nagdala og mga blood adto sa brain but fresh nga mga blood away sa heart back to the brain. Well, the venous circulation, this carries blood, used blood from the brain back to the heart. So, I hope you understand.
Next is the cells of the brain. So the brain is made up of two types of cells, which is nerve cells and glia cells. So first, what is nerve cells? Nerve cells is also called neurons, is the basic unit of the nervous system, especially in the brain. So neurons are responsible for receiving, processing, and sending messages to other neurons and to the brain. So they use electrical and chemical signals. So message travel quickly to the brain. So that is why we can react, we can feel, and think within seconds because the message travels very fast. Neurons are not just a few or thousands. There are 86 billions of neurons in the human brain. These neurons work together to send messages that allows us to think, feel, react, and move, which means without neurons that send messages to our brain stop working. And if our brain stop working, the body cannot function, and the life of human being cannot continue, which shows how important neurons are. So for example, when you touch something hot, neurons quickly send a message to the brain and the brain tells your hand to move away. So the second example is when someone throws a ball to you, neurons receive messages from your eyes and then send the message to the brain. And the brain processes the message and that tells your hand to move away and catch the ball. Neurons have three main parts, which is the dendrites, cell body, and axon. So first is dendrites. So dendrites are the branch-like structure that receive messages from other neurons and send the information to the cell body. So next is the cell body, or also called as soma. The cell body processes the message received from dendrites, and the cell body decides whether the message is important enough to send along the axon. So the last is axon. The axon is a long thin fiber that carries and processes messages from the cell body to other neurons. So remember that neurons come in many sizes and shapes, but they always have the same three main parts, which is the dendrites, cell body, and axon.
Good day, everyone. Today I will explain how neurons communicate with each other. Neurons communicate through a small gap called a synapse. Even though neurons do not physically touch, they are able to send messages across this gap. The branch-like parts of a neuron called a dendrites receive messages from other neurons. These messages are then passed to the cell body, which acts as the control center. The cell body decides whether the message is strong or important enough to continue. If the message needs to be passed on, it travels down a long part of a neuron, called the axon. When the message reaches the end of the axon, chemicals known as neurotransmitters are released to the synapse. These chemicals cross the small gap and attach to the next neuron. Once attached, they help the next neuron continue the message. This process allows our brain and nervous system to function properly. Together, these signals allows our brain and body to communicate, helping us think, move, and respond to our environment.
So, good day everyone, especially to you, Miss. Now, on my part, I'll be discussing about the glia cells. Now, glia cells or glia is a Greek word meaning glue. Now, these are the cells of the brain that provides neurons with nourishment, protection, and support. So, unsa man ning neurons? Why man nagtalk ta ani ug unsa may connection ani niya sa glia cells? Now, neurons is like a messenger. They sends and receives messages through our brain so that we can see, we can hear, we can taste, we can smell, or even we can feel. The five senses ang atong neurons ang responsible ana. And kabalo man siguro ta how important our five senses are in our daily life or sa pang-adlaw-adlaw natong kinabuhi. Now, so much for that. Unsa may labot ani niya sa glia cells? Now, ang atong glia cells is like a support staff. The neurons can't work properly without ang kaning glia cells. It's because ang glia cells siya ang mo nourish, siya ang mo protect, ug siya ang mo support of course sa atong neurons. So, neurons is glia cells is important just like neurons. So, they are both important. So, going back sa atong definition ganina, glia cells or glia is a Greek word meaning glue. Now, sa may connection ninyo gitawag man siya nga glue. Now, it's because in the early 18,000 katong mga scientists sa una, katong mga early microscopes nga lang gigamit nga dili pa kayo advance, ang ilahang na gi-interpret sa una ang kaning glia cells is like murag pakapinbubot lang ba nga gibutang na sila diha to keep the neurons together or to glue them together. That is why gitawag gi-follow siya sa kuan nga glue. Kay wala kay nila nakita ilang value, but as time passes by, as kanang technologies emerge or like nagdevelop, nakita na nila ang true value o importance sa glia cells. Nga dili ra dai siya to fill in the spaces or gaps o to keep the neurons together, but also glia cells is important just like neurons ra pod. So very kuan kay silang duha, very important sa nga part sa atong body. But do you know nga ang kaning glia cells, though very kuan siya beneficial sa atoa, since siya man ang support staff sa neurons, but maupad na most or 80% or 70% nga tumors or brain tumors na to is magikan ana sa glia cells. Now, it's because 10 to 50 times of kaning atong ang kaning glia cells mo reproduce na siya than neurons. 10 to 50 times, imagine. Now, if mo sobra pag yun or abnormal na ang iyang pag-reproduce, that is why mo lead na siya into brain tumors. Since siya man ang paspas kaya mo reproduce, that is why mo lead siya og brain tumors. Na kanang brain tumors or tumors nga magikan sa glia cells is gitawag po na siya nga gliomas. So, gliomas, again, ang katong gliomas mo na siya ang mga brain tumors nga magikan or mag-start sa atong glia cells. Now, nana siya 3 types of gliomas. We have astrocytoma, oligodendroglioma, and kanang glioblastoma na wala na kay nako na sila dig deeper o gi-studyhan ug unsa na sila, ug unsay kalainan nila. Kay since di man siya part sa akong study or report, but ang akong nahibawan is ang kanang glioblastoma mo na siya ang pinaka worst case na gyud sa brain tumor. Now, moving on, proceed ta sa 3 types. Ang kaning glia cells na siya 3 types. But ang kaning kuan nang akong i-discuss. So 3 types, we have stroglia or astrocytes, we have oligodendroglia, and microglia. Na akong i-discuss is ang kaning stroglia or kaning astrocytes. Now, astrocytes comes from the Greek word astro, meaning glue. Astro meaning star. Nagitawag ni siya, gi-follow ni siya sa name ni star. It's because ang kaning shape ani niya sa astrocytes is more siya star. That is why ikuan siya sa astro, or meaning sa astro is star. So ang kani po diyang trabaho po dani, ang ihapong role is mo ni siya mo regulate sa atong blood-brain barrier. Siya ang magbuot kung unsa nga substances ang gikan sa blood ang makaproceed sa atong brain. Siya pud ang mo kuan kanang mo allow or mo help nga ang kaning nutrients ug oxygen makaabot sa atong neurons. And also, siya pod ang mo control sa atong homeostasis. Na unsa man ni siya homeostasis? Mo ni siya ang mo balance. Okay, as what they say, too much or too less of everything is bad. So siya ang mo regulate ana, siya ang mo kuan nga dapat na balance ra gyud siya. Just like for example sa kanang once na ata sa init nga lugar or kanang limuot, so initan na tong lawas ana. That is why that is the help of homeostasis nga mo kuan ta og kaning singoton ta. It's because to kuan to regulate sa atong body temperature nga to cool it down. And if kuan pod likewise pod if napud ta sa kaning lugar nga tugnaw, like for example winter, diha pod mo respond atong lawas through kanang kuan. Kabantay mo once nata sa tugnaw nga lugar mo init pod atong lawas. It is because too much of everything or too less of everything is bad. That is why kuan na siya balance. Now going back sa tuang sa talking about the brain, ang iha pong i-regulate ani niya is ang atong ion levels like kaning potassium, ang kanang neurotransmitters o kaning water balance po niya. And lastly, repairs scar formation. So when the brain is injured, the astrocytes helps repairs kaning mga damaged tissues. And also mo-form po ni siya og mga scar tissue to help protect sa katong mga kaning healthy areas to prevent na lang po sa pagkalat sa damage. So that is just some of the kaning functions sa ato ang glia cells, and the rest will be reported by my co-reporters. So I hope you've learned something. Thank you and goodbye.
Next is oligodendroglia. Oligodendroglia creates a fatty substance called myelin which insulate the axon, and it allows the electrical messages to travel faster around our body. So oligodendroglia is a type of glia cells that are found in our central nervous system, which includes the brain and the spinal cord. And its main function is to produce myelin. So this myelin is a fatty substance which wrap around the axon so that the electrical messages will move faster. And the axon is an extension of neurons to send signals through our body. So, since the myelin covers the axon, this covering is called the myelin sheath. So, myelin sheath work as an insulation which allows the electrical signals or nerve impulses to travel faster and more efficiently between neurons. For example, if we touch something hot, then the myelin sheath will send signals to the spinal cord up to the brain, and that's why atong birahon atong kamot. Because the brain detects that the thing we are touching is something hot and it can burn up our hand. So that's oligodendroglia works. And also oligodendroglia can extend its processes to several axons, helping multiple neurons at the same time. So because of this function, oligodendroglia are very important for fast communication within our nervous system. Next is microglia. So microglia are the brain's immune cells protecting it from invaders and cleaning up debris. So microglia are the immune cells of the brain. Their main role is to protect the nervous system from infection and damage. Its main function are defending the brain from pathogens. Pathogens are the microorganisms which are harmful to our brain. Another function is they cleaned up debris. Debris is the dead cells, damaged neurons, and waste materials, meaning microglia removes waste materials, damaged neurons, and dead cells from our brain. And also, they perform phagocytosis, which is the process of engulfing and digesting harmful particles or waste materials from our brain. In short, microglia are the cleaners and the security guard of the brain because it protects our brain from the harmful invaders and remove wasteful and dead cells from our brain.
So now let's talk about the facts about the human brain. So the first one is the human brain is the largest brain of all vertebrates relative to the body size. So this means that when comparing brain size to the animal's overall body weight or size, Humans have a bigger brain proportionally than any other animals with a backbone, just like mammals, birds, or reptiles. So the second one is it weighs about 3.3 pounds or 1.5 kilograms. So this is the average weight of a fully developed adult human brain, roughly the same as a small bag of apples or a large bottle of water. So the third one is the average male has a brain volume of 1,275 cubic centimeters. So cubic centimeters measure the total space the brain takes up. This is typically volume for adult males, though size can vary wildly without affecting intelligence. So the fourth one is the average female has a brain volume of 1,131 cubic centimeters. So this is typically volume for adult females, which is slightly smaller in the average than males' brains. Again, this difference does not determine cognitive capacity.
So, the fifth fact about the brain is the brain makes up about 2% of a human's body weight. Even though the brain is small compared to the whole body, it is also extremely powerful. It controls almost everything. Like for example, um, when you when you decide to raise your hand in a class, your your brain sends message to your muscle so that you can raise your arm. The sixth one is the cerebrum makes up 85% of the brain's weight. The cerebrum is the largest part of the brain. It is responsible for important functions like thinking, memory, learning, decision making, and controlling voluntarily movements. Like, for example, when you solve a math problem, remember a lesson, or decide what to say in a conversation, your cerebrum is the part of the brain that helps you think and make decisions. 7. It contains about 86 billion nerve cells or neurons, the gray matter. Neurons are the cells that send and receive information in the brain. They help us think and process information. Because of the large number of neurons, the brain can handle complete tasks. Like for example, when you learn a new skill or when you learn a new skill like playing musical instrument or riding a bicycle, neurons in your brain work together to help you understand what or how to do it. 8. It contains billions of nerve fibers or axons and dendrites, the white matter. Axons and dendrites are parts of neurons that connects and communicate with other neurons. These fibers carry messages throughout the brain and the body, helping different parts of the brain to work together. Like, for example, when you accidentally touch hot or something hot, the nerve fibers quickly send a message from your hand to your brain so you can immediately pull your hand away. Last but not the least, these neurons are connected by trillions of connections and synapses. Synapses are tiny gaps where neurons pass messages to each other using chemical called neurotransmitters. The trillions of synapses allow the brain to process information very quickly and support learning and memory. For example, when you study for a test and remember the information later. Synapses helps neurons communicate and strengthen those connections so you can recall what you learned. So that's the 9 facts of the brain. I mean about the brain. Thank you.